This podcast is made possible by you, the supporters of WPLN and WNXP, Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's December 6th, 2024. On this day in 1995, the FDA approved an antiviral drug that changed HIV from a death sentence to a treatable condition. It was a kind of protease inhibitor, and it had an immediate effect, dropping the mortality rate among patients across all demographic groups. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. The medical response to HIV has advanced dramatically since the 90s. There are newer, better ways to treat an infection, and even prescriptions called PrEP that people in high-risk groups can take to reduce the chance of infection. Many HIV patients now get to a point where their viral load is so low that they can safely live long, normal lives without the risk of passing the disease to sexual partners. But that's with treatment, ideally with swift treatment. The CDC recommends people begin HIV care within a month of finding out they're infected. And obviously, they need to be diagnosed in the first place. The agency estimates 14% of Tennesseans with HIV don't even know they have it. And without treatment, well, there's a reason we were terrified of AIDS back in the 80s. HIV and AIDS left to run rampant do horrible things to the body. We do not need to go back to that. But as WPLN health reporter Catherine Sweeney has told us, HIV care in Tennessee is in a tenuous state right now. Last year, Governor Bill Lee opted to reject millions of dollars in federal money for HIV prevention. The state replaced that money, but it also replaced a 5-year funding cycle with one that has an annual churn, with the yearly possibility that the money could go away or be shifted around. And that really complicates staffing at the clinics that provide services, like Nashville Cares. And advocates say the way things have changed under direct state control has made it more difficult to reach out to people in high-risk groups who may be in that 14% who have HIV but don't know it. Now, to put this into perspective, Tennessee has yet to reach a goal the World Health Organization set for next year, that 95% of all people living with HIV should have a diagnosis, that 95% of those people should be in treatment, and that 95% of folks in treatment should have a significantly suppressed viral load. The goal was for that to happen by 2025, which is just a month from now. The world as a whole still has a ways to go, but Tennessee specifically is off the mark, too. Traditional high-risk groups, like men who have sex with men, still account for the vast majority of current HIV cases here. But they're not the groups the state's current political leaders tend to prioritize. So perhaps unsurprisingly, Tennessee is shifting its focus on HIV prevention to populations that conservatives tend to treat more warmly: pregnant people, survivors of sex trafficking, first responders. It's too early to find good, hard data on how these changes are affecting the death rate here. The most recent figures on the state's online HIV dashboard are from 2021. But they do show that, going into this funding change, the HIV treatment community was already facing a challenge. The pandemic made things a lot worse, disrupting prevention and treatment services in ways that led to increases in diagnoses and HIV-related deaths. Like I said before, the thing about HIV is that treatment makes an incredible impact. Without adequate care, it's still an awful thing. With treatment, it's quite manageable. The difference is night and day. And the decisions we make as a state about how to respond to HIV affect a lot of people. Approximately 20,000 Tennesseans are HIV positive. In just a few minutes, a leader in Nashville's hip-hop community gives his take on what's needed and what's missing here. That's coming up after the newscast.
Nashville Public Radio is always here to keep you informed, whether it's the latest news or music you should check out. Every week, What Were Wednesdays shares the latest happenings taking place right here in Nashville by talking to members of our community, putting on events in your neighborhood and beyond. So tune in to What Were Wednesdays every Wednesday, and you can always find events at WNXP.org/events.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. The mayor of Memphis is pushing back against a U.S. Justice Department deal to enact police reforms in the city. In a news conference yesterday, Mayor Paul Young said Memphis has already made hundreds of positive changes in police procedures since the death of Tyree Nichols in January 2023. His statements come on the heels of a DOJ report released this week that says Memphis police use excessive force and discriminate against Black people. At an earlier news conference before the mayor's comments, an assistant U.S. attorney warned that the Justice Department could sue to force reforms at the Memphis Police Department if the city does not cooperate. Change Healthcare is taking the first steps toward settling the class action lawsuits filed after a major data breach this year. The Tennessee-based company handles about a third of the country's medical billing claims every year, acting as a go-between for doctors, hospitals, pharmacies, labs, and insurance companies. A cyber attack in February essentially crashed the system. WPLN's health reporter Catherine Sweeney tells us that dozens of groups filed class action lawsuits, and now a settlement may be on the horizon.
The lawsuits were filed for a few reasons. About 100 million people had their sensitive financial and personal data leaked, making it the largest breach in American history. It interrupted important medical services, and it caused months of delayed payments to thousands of doctors across the country. The federal court system combined all those lawsuits into one, according to the HIPAA Journal, which covers medical privacy issues. Over the next few weeks, the plaintiffs, defendants, and judge will start private meetings to talk about a potential settlement payout.
The HIPAA Journal reported that a similar but smaller breach happened with the insurance company Anthem in 2014. It ended up paying more than $100 million in settlements. As Tennessee State University cuts costs to keep from running out of money, students, staff, and alumni are worried about the school's future. On WPLN's Daily Show, This is Nashville, a caller named Barry said he's a TSU alum whose family members have earned over 40 degrees from the institution. He said the cuts make him feel like the administration cares more about state government, which has underfunded the historically Black school for decades, than the university community.
All that stuff is nothing but a smokescreen to help the state legislators to take over the school.
Dr. Crystal DeGregory sees things differently. She graduated from Fisk and TSU and now teaches at Bethune-Cookman University in Florida. She says administrators have to be held responsible for mismanaging the money they were given.
The whole idea that someone aloft in the sky owes this institution more than people who are on its payroll as employees, who are employed to do the job of protecting its operations and making certain that it has a viable future.
DeGregory goes on to say that blaming the state glosses over poor financial decisions made by previous president Glenda Glover. Meanwhile, TSU has already laid off over 100 staff members, and state legislators are asking for even deeper cuts. Tennessee's child abuse hotline is transitioning to online only during the weekends. The Department of Children's Services announced yesterday that weekend callers who have tips about child abuse or neglect must now submit information through the state's online portal instead of the hotline. The portal can be accessed at tn.gov/DCS. The department hopes the change will reduce wait times for callers and make it easier to file reports. DCS says last month alone, more than 7,000 reports of suspected abuse were called in to the hotline. The change only impacts the public phone line, not the lines for law enforcement or medical professionals, which will remain active over the weekends. Next week, Clarksville is marking the one-year anniversary of a devastating tornado, and the city is commemorating the event in part with an attempt at restoration. 150 survivor families will receive free trees and assistance in planting them. Clarksville Now reports the intention is for the trees to bring a sense of hope, renewal, and growth. Interested families are able to pick an oak, maple, or flowering dogwood when they register on the city's website. The trees will be available for pickup on Saturday, and anyone who'd like to help with the planting effort can also sign up at cityofclarksville.com. In 2018, Nashville set a goal to plant 500,000 trees. This week, the city officially hit the 10% mark. WPLN's Caroline Eggers reports.
Nashville has not historically protected its trees, especially during recent construction booms, so the city's canopy has dwindled over the decades. To help reverse this trend, the city set up the Root Nashville program with nonprofits like the Cumberland River Compact. Jason Sproles of the Compact was at a tiny park in South Nashville on Wednesday to help plant the program's 50,000th tree. He says the city wasn't initially planting enough to meet its target, but this past year set an encouraging record.
If you crunch the numbers, to get to 500,000 by 2050, you need to average about 18,000 trees per year. So we're starting to really get close to like the target of production we need to hit each year.
The city has been planting all over the map, with special attention to the least green areas. And they're choosing native species, like overcup oaks, that are well equipped to handle future climate change, like hotter temps and drier soils. Anyone can sign up to help volunteer with the effort, and people can always request new trees for their neighborhood. Caroline Eggers, WPLN News.
Would you like to attend a concert in a cave? You can at the Caverns, which is about 90 miles south of Nashville. If you do, humans will not be your only company taking in the music underground. Cave systems are home to numerous species, most of which are less than a centimeter long, but can include bats, blind fish, and cave salamanders. Dr. Matthew Niemiller from the University of Alabama in Huntsville studies the biodiversity of caves and says we have much more to discover under our feet.
A lot of the work that we continue to do in Tennessee and Alabama is biosurveys. There's more than 11,000 caves in Tennessee that are known, many more still to be discovered, and maybe 3% of those caves have been what we might consider to be comprehensively studied. So there's a lot of potential for new species to be found, new populations to be found.
You can learn more about Big Mouth Cave, which holds the stage at the Caverns, in the This Is Nashville podcast feed. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. On his new album, Nashville rapper Chuck Indigo intentionally looks inward, grappling with his flaws and hopes while bringing more of his musical skills to his tracks. He was the WNXP Nashville Artist of the Month for November, and recently sat down for an interview with This Is Nashville's daily host, Khalil Ekalona. They talked about what it means for an artist to be vulnerable in hip-hop, and they found themselves with contrasting takes on what Nashville needs to support local hip-hop artists.
All right, so when you initially were dedicating yourself to making hip-hop on a full-time basis, you wanted to be hard, you know? And then now you've changed that. How have you seen yourself and your work grow over these years as you have grown on this journey that we opened up the conversation with?
Yeah, I think it's just more so like I said a little bit earlier, just kind of like leaning into being vulnerable and like leaning into like just being true and honest to myself. You know what I mean? I think it's really hard to try to keep up some type of like righteous facade or any type of facade, really. Like anything that's just not naturally how you come into the room, I think is really hard to try to like maintain. And I don't know. Like I think over time I've been able to just be more comfortable with myself and be more comfortable with my flaws. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And just with sharing those, because it's like it's one of those things of like, you know, nothing really changes when people find out more about you. I think if anything, it kind of liberates those around you to be like, dang, he dealing with some stuff I'm dealing with. And he told everybody. So it's like, I've just found strength in that.
You were talking about being vulnerable, this changes that you made and putting things out there, but also irresponsible and impossible to hold up and maintain these facades.
Yeah.
A lot of facades in hip hop.
Yeah.
They're a facade of either you're super hard, you're this dangerous gangster style figure, or you're super conscious, constantly reminding the world how woke you are in rhyme. What do you think about those? And it seems like nothing else can exist in between those two extremes.
Yeah.
As far as like mainstream hip hop, what do you think about that? What do you think about this pigeonholing and of roles that hip hop artists are forced to take?
Part of me almost feels like it's a conspiracy against our people. No, I'm playing. But I just think I honestly just feel like that it lacks artistic integrity. You know what I mean? I think it lacks, and there's a level of like manipulation that goes into both sides of it. I think, well, I can respect someone who's like quote unquote conscious or whatever, trying to push a message that's more positive. I think oftentimes, a lot of the times, it like, to me, it misses the mark either from a palatable standpoint where it's like the music sucks. Like you're saying something, but it's not. I don't want to play this.
Yeah.
Or I think it like lacks the integrity of just being like it's like you're dodging the accountability of what you're doing.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And pointing the finger at somebody else. Like, bro, but your porch dirty. How you telling me my porch?
And that's it. We're flawed people.
Yeah.
And so to be focusing on the conscious, positive upliftment misses the part where you talk about or explore your own little petty vices.
Come on.
That you engage in.
100%.
Where do you think hip-hop culture can grow? I think there's a couple things about Nashville's hip-hop scene. I think that Nashville has more of a hip-hop industry scene than a hip-hop culture scene, which is fine because it's music. It's the music city. Where do you see not just Nashville's hip-hop culture grow, but the hip-hop culture in general? Where would you like to see it go?
So one, I'm going to have some pushback. From my prerogative, I think it's the opposite. So I think we actually have an embedded like hip-hop culture, and the industry aspect of it is kind of like the infrastructure, if you will, is what lacks. Like, we could sit here and play Nashville artists, like really good hip-hop artists who currently live here in Nashville for hours and be like, who's this? This is really good. And it's like, yeah, this is Ro Marquez. Or, hey, no, this is really good. Who is this? This is Tim Gent. Oh, this is really good. This is Brian Brown. You know what I mean? And the list goes on and on and on. Like, one of my top 5 rappers of all time is Petty. He's from here. And no, you know what I mean? Like, I would put him up against just about anybody, right? But I think what lacks a lot of the times is like, when people from other regions and stuff come into the city, what they know the industry to be is country music. So they're like, where's the hip hop around here? I ain't know it was no hip hop. But it's just like, I can go to a hip hop show every week as like a local, hip hop person. There's shows going on all the time. There's artists doing stuff all the time. I just think we haven't like found infrastructure to be able to like make that grow here. But I think the capacity that we hold, or the potential that it holds, I think it's endless. It's so young.
I'm too tired, need new ties. I'm treading lightly while I'm on this road. I'm still on the go, trying to find my fit. Artists and the arsonists, they wonder how my life up in flames, and still I want the smoke. And my message still the same, watch the okie doke. It's a shame when they can't hang, they been a homie for some years, but we can't get there with the shit that brought us here. I'm trying to heal, dollar bills make it better, that ain't even real. Drive slow, drive slow, drive slow.
You can hear the full conversation with Chuck Indigo in the This Is Nashville podcast feed. Indigo's new album is Until I Get There. Thanks for listening to the Nash Villager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one. And we'll catch back up next week.